So, hello everyone. For those of you who are with me in the room right now, you get to see me recording a podcast. For those of you who are joining me either on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcast, hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Fat Doctor Podcast. This is my book launch live. I have absolutely no idea how it's going to turn out, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've got some amazing people here with me to ask the questions that they've always wanted to ask about the book and about all the work that I'm doing. It's a free for all. I uh, I have been preparing for this moment for a really long time, like months, right? It took me months to write this book. I've been psyching myself up, and then I published it, and then I had to wait for like the pre-order, and it's finally coming out tomorrow. And you'd think that I would have a lot to say, and I'd be really ready to talk about it. But actually, my mind has gone completely blank, and it has been blank for the last 2 days. Every time I sat down to write notes, I was like, I don't know what to say. I think I'm very emotional, and so. I'm just going to start with that. I'm feeling very emotional. I'm feeling very grateful for this community who have kept me going. Every time I wanted to quit, one of you has reminded me not to do that and has told me why I shouldn't do that, and it has kept me going. And I am so grateful for you. I cannot. I'm not trying to be cutesy about it. I really mean it. And most of you who know me well enough know that I don't just say shit for no reason. I say it if I mean it, and I really, really do mean it. So thank you, first and foremost. I really hoped I had planned to have a copy of my book to hold up in front of you right now. See this imaginary copy of my book. I ordered it on the 1st of May. And on the 7th of May, I got an email from Royal Mail saying, we will be delivering your book tomorrow. That was the 8th of May, which just happened to be my birthday. And it's the 19th of May. And that tells you everything you need to know about Royal Mail. Amazon tried to fix it, they didn't. And so, unfortunately, I'm not going to have a copy of my book probably for another few days. You might get one before I do, which is exciting for you. But yeah, so I just want you to pretend that I'm holding my book right now, going, look, it's here, it's here. But yeah, it's out in print version and on Kindle tomorrow. So if you pre-ordered it on Kindle, it should be delivered directly into your inbox. And if you haven't pre-ordered it, but you're going to be ordering a hard copy, then you can do it from midnight tonight, technically, or actually by the time this podcast comes out, wherever you are. And so now I'm going to be really honest with you about two things. Number one, I very, very, very rarely read nonfiction books. I've probably read 10 in the last 2 decades. I'm just going to put that out there. The other thing is I never listen to podcasts, which is kind of ironic because we're on season 6 of my podcast and I've written a book for myself, but I don't really do that. Like, it's not my thing. And I think reading nonfiction is actually a really big ask of people. I know that life is busy. I know that our capacity is limited, and there are lots of amazing books out there. And I have a long list of ones that I'm planning to read and probably will never do. I've read that actually just buying a book, a nonfiction book, can have quite a positive impact on you. So that's my excuse for all the books I bought and never actually read. That being said, the book exists now, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm going to tell you all about it. There's also the podcast. All of season 6 is about this book and will continue to be about this book. There's also a website, noway.org. There's a page on the website which says noway.org and it's /start here. And it basically condenses the entire book into essentially a 10-minute read. So if you don't have the capacity to read the whole book right now, but you want to know what's in it, you can start there. Basically, however you want to engage with it, there is a way in. I love that some people really mainly read nonfiction because it's way more interesting. I want to be like you. I read a lot of fiction. It's mainly romance or crime fiction, and the kind of the more basic, the better for me. I don't read highbrow fiction at all because I can't. Like, my brain literally won't let me. But I applaud those of you who do, because I think educating yourself is always a very good thing. All right. As I said, keep the comments coming. I'm going to tell you a little bit about A, why this book exists, and B, what's in the book. So the book exists essentially because for 20 years I practiced medicine without knowing any of this stuff. I prescribed weight loss without question. I told my patients to lose weight in order to treat their symptoms. I told my patients that they had to lose weight in order to access certain treatments. I never fully agreed with that last part. I always felt like that was actually inappropriate, but it was the guidelines, it was the rules, and I followed the rules without question. I never once thought about weight stigma. Honestly, I didn't even know what it was until a few years ago. And all the while, the entire time I was practicing medicine this way, I was also experiencing weight stigma as a fat person trying to access healthcare. I had my first child 3 years after I qualified. Is that right? Yep. That's good maths. So, the first time I had a child, I went through pregnancy and labor in an extremely fat phobic environment. So I knew what weight stigma was, and I knew all the bullshit that came along with weight and medicine. And yet I never thought to question it, which, I probably need to talk about that in therapy one day because I don't quite know why. Although that being said, I guess to a degree, I internalized a lot of the messaging, which was, that fat people essentially deserve what happens to them, right? So I felt like I deserved it. So every time a doctor was shitty towards me, I was like, oh, that's crap. But I deserved it. Because if I wasn't fat, then they wouldn't have had to do that. So I guess that's how I justified it. But I probably need to explore that more in therapy, not here. In 2020, after the pandemic hit and I went on my final diet ever, I found the anti-diet world accidentally, and it has been an incredible journey ever since then. I learned a lot. I learned about all of the lies that we've been fed, that we've been told about weight loss, every single one of them. Okay, not every single one, but a lot of them. And the more I learned, the more I was like, this is not possible. This can't be true. And I kept going. More and more lies got uncovered. And then I started to realize that doctors were really playing a huge role, a very important, very integral role in spreading these lies and perpetuating the harm. Like doctors were conspiring with the weight loss industry, essentially, or the weight loss industry was conspiring with doctors to really actively harm fat people, to deny them basic health care, and to really perpetuate these lies that we're being told. And I was like, oh, bugger. It's not good being on the wrong side of history. I probably need to do something about that. Um, and so I started speaking up, as you all know, those of you who've been following me. I started out as the fat doctor, and then I started using the hashtag no way quite a long time ago. And the book has been sort of bubbling away ever since. I've been writing it. I think this is the fifth version. I've written it many times and gone, no, that's not it, and then had to start again. But yeah, at the end of it all, at this stage in my life, the real reason I wrote this book, the real reason I feel like this book has to go out there, has to be out there, is because I'm really sick and tired of doctors. We could end the sentence there, but specifically doctors treating their fat patients like shit. I am really sick and tired of it. There is absolutely no rhyme nor reason nor justification at all out there. It just isn't. And it's just wrong. It's so wrong. It's harmful. It's unethical. It's a breach of our duty of care, and it has to stop. But I didn't want to write a book to doctors. A, because fuck doctors, and B, because I didn't think they were going to listen to me. And actually, that's not the main reason. The main reason was because I wanted to write a book to fat people. And so that's what I've done. I have written a book to fat people, about fat people, centering the lives of fat people, and very much with the attitude of, if doctors read this, they can read it, they can take note, but actually it's not about them. It's about fat people. And I'm not here to get doctors on board, you know. I really don't think I need to. I don't. The rules are the rules, the laws are the laws, and they're supposed to be doing something that they're not doing, and they should be held accountable for that. So I wrote this book for fat people, as a way of giving fat people the language and the evidence to stand up to their doctors, to take their power back from their doctors, and yeah, I think the anger sort of became the book, really, if I'm honest. So a little bit about what's in the book. Thank you for those of you who have already been looking at the website, by the way, noway.org. I'm glad you've seen it. Please do check it out. But let me tell you a little bit about what's in the book. I wrote notes for this part because I won't remember otherwise. So, chapter one is there's no such thing as a healthy weight. And I spend the entire chapter telling you that this idea that there is a correct weight to be, and if you go above that weight, then you're fat and unhealthy, and if you go below that weight, also you're unhealthy. But there's like a bit in the middle, and this is the healthy bit, and it's technically BMI of 18 to 25. That's what they'll tell you. That's just bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit. Like I talk about the history of how it came to be. It is essentially a scam created by insurance companies to begin with, and then the weight loss industry was born out of this and went, oh, this is a great way to make money. And that's what they're doing. They're making billions, hundreds of billions of dollars every year because they created this myth, this lie that there was such a thing as a healthy weight and anybody that is above it is fat and unhealthy. It's not true. There's this term, obesity. I refer to it a lot in the book. I make it very clear that I don't agree that it's a real thing. It just simply means being fat. So it's a clinical way of calling someone fat. But the idea that it's a disease, there's something a lot more sinister about that. The weight loss industry turned fatness into a disease in order to sell weight loss. That was the whole point. And that's kind of the once upon a time of my story. Once upon a time, the weight loss industry created a disease out of nowhere to sell weight loss. That's how it starts. And in chapter two, I tell you something that probably a lot of you, many of you, most of you probably know already, which is that diets don't work. And diets don't work because your bodies won't let them. Like literally, your body is programmed to resist the very thing that you're trying to achieve. So they work in the short term because, your body is chill. And, actually to begin with is like, okay, I'll let you get away with this to a point. But over time, something called adaptive thermogenesis kicks in. I mean, it kicks in right from the beginning, but your metabolism slows down, your appetite goes up, and weight loss is unsustainable for pretty much everybody. It's a biological reality. It is evolution. It's not something to do with willpower or you're not good enough or you didn't try hard enough or if you try this particular diet's going to work. They never do. None of them do. And I talk about that in great detail in the book. How your body is designed to hold on to its fat for your survival, for the survival of the species. And it doesn't understand the difference between intentional and unintentional weight loss. It's all the same. Starvation is starvation. As far as your body is concerned, that is the end of it. I also talk about how the best way to gain weight is to attempt to lose it because weight loss is the biggest risk factor for long-term weight gain. And essentially how dieting makes you fatter. There's even a study that says dieting makes you fatter. That's the name of the study, which is great. Chapter 3 talks about how being fat is not what is making you sick. And I know this goes against everything you've been told. So I think this is the chapter that people are going to struggle the most with because it's very contrary to, all the messaging that you've received, probably most of your life. I talk about, that was the most important chapter to hear. And I remember when I was doing this chapter with you, actually, that I started talking about the obesity paradox. You probably remember this. And some of you will have heard of the obesity paradox. They call it a paradox. A paradox is basically something that happens contrary to what you think is going to happen, right? And so everyone assumes that being fat is a risk factor for disease. And so they can't explain why fat people seem to do much better in all sorts of circumstances. After a heart attack, after a stroke, if you've got kidney failure and you're on dialysis, during surgery, after surgery, in ICU, with heart disease, with heart failure, with high blood pressure. Like there's all these studies that show that fat people fare better. They live longer. And they call it a paradox. And they come up with all sorts of reasons why, oh no, it's the data, it's confused. Like it's not. It just is what it is. Because actually, what no one is willing to accept is that in some situations, having fat is actually protective. It protects you when you fall down. It stops you from getting frail. Fat is an organ, a very important organ, serves many, many functions, very important functions. And so this idea that like fat is bad for you because it doesn't look good. It's like saying skin is bad for you because it doesn't look good. I mean, that's just bullshit. Interestingly, muscles look good. So nobody has a problem with people having too many muscles. I'm not quite sure. So there's some questions here about weight cycling, and we're going to get to that in a minute. So Don't worry. It's a big part of the book. But yes, weight cycling is absolutely a huge risk factor for all sorts of diseases. And that's what I refer to in the book. They'll say it's your weight, but actually, it could be weight cycling. It could be weight stigma that's causing these things. In fact, weight stigma and weight cycling have been shown to cause high blood pressure and high cholesterol and high blood sugar and chronic inflammation and all of these things. So it might be your weight, but indirectly. It might be your weight because you're being stigmatized because of your weight, as opposed to your weight itself that's causing the disease. Does that make sense? That's when it gets a bit complicated. Um, so that's kind of part one of the book, which is basically fat is not a diagnosis. So let's stop doing that, shall we? Stop treating fat because there's nothing wrong with fat. Um, and the second part of the book is all about how the first chapter is that doctors are making you sick. So being fat is not what's making you sick, and the next chapter, doctors are making you sick. I don't pull my punches, hold my punches, pull my punches. Can't remember what I'm trying to say here, but in this chapter, I am brutally honest about how doctors really are very much the problem instead of the solution. That weight stigma kills people. That there's one particular study that showed that during swine flu, fat people had an 81% higher odds of dying, which is terrible. But it turns out it's not because of their weight. It's because fat people received antiviral treatment a lot later than thin people. And once they took that into account and adjusted the figures from that, the association between weight and death from swine flu disappeared. So that's just one study that shows that weight stigma literally is killing people. And yeah, doctors are making you sick. That's not good, is it? But it's not just doctors that are making you sick. It's the treatment itself. It's the fact that like we created this disease in order to sell a cure, but the cure itself, that's causing the problems. And sometimes that's literally speaking. So there are weight loss drugs out there that cause the very problems that they claim to be solving. So many drugs taken off the market because they caused heart disease. Weight loss drugs that caused heart disease. I mean, you can't make that shit up. So in some cases, I'm being very kind of literal, but there are many ways in which the treatment is causing the disease. I talk about the Minnesota starvation experiment in great detail. I talk about eating disorders and how doctors are essentially prescribing eating disorders to their fat patients. How we don't take this seriously. We don't worry about the way that dieting and how that is a risk factor. Then you're up to 18 times more likely to develop a risk factor if you use severe dieting techniques, which are prescribed by doctors. So we don't talk about that enough. And so that's what I do. I also make the point that what we call disordered eating in thin people, we call lifestyle changes in fat people. And that's a problem. And that's a real problem. I am paying attention to the comments, but I'm seeing that there are some questions for later, so I will come back to them. The next chapter is about how weight loss won't improve your health, and I don't know what else to say about that. Weight loss doesn't improve your health. The end. There's a whole chapter about it, but to sum up, it doesn't. Um, and then I kind of go in the last three chapters. I kind of get into it and kind of show why it's become so problematic. Because at the beginning of the book, it's kind of like this is the reality, and actually doctors are really problematic. And hopefully doctors who read this part about weight stigma go, oops, we're not allowed to do that. And I'm talking about the Minnesota starvation experiment, I'm talking about eating disorders and weight cycling and all of this stuff, and people are just hopefully going, oh god, this is crap, why are we doing this? Clearly it's crap. And then chapter 7 and 8 and 9 make it very clear why we're still doing it. The first is that the guidelines exist, but they can't be trusted. And I show very clearly how guidelines committees that write all the guidelines that say you should lose weight to treat your sleep apnea, and you should lose weight to treat your arthritis, and you should lose weight because you're fat, period. I show that those guidelines are bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry, by the weight loss industry, and that we are enshrining discrimination into medical practice because of money, for profit only, for no other reason. And that's not fun to read, I don't think. I think this is where people in the book club who are reading the book along with me were a bit like, oh, that's not nice. And then the next chapter gets harder because I talk about the money and how much money and what money will buy you in today's day and age. I talk about how semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, and Novo Nordisk upwards of 30 plus billion last year. And Manjaro beat them, I think, by a few billion, just a few billion. What's a few billion between friends? And I talk about how that happened and what it is that drug companies are able to do with the money that they spend, how they buy doctors, how they buy guidelines, how they buy research, how they buy the media, how they buy politicians, and everyone. Like they are, you know, I mean, you can call it lobbying if you want, but they are making sure that they continue to earn money by continuing the lie. And the last chapter, I think, is probably the most painful chapter. It's talks about just how far it's gone in our society, how far these lies have, you know, how we've allowed these lies, how far we've allowed these lies to take us. I talk about a couple of kids who were removed from their family by social services simply because they didn't lose enough weight. Talk about how people are being denied surgery. Earlier in the book, I'm talking about how people can't have organ replacements, how they can't have fertility treatment. And I allude to the fact that this is eugenics and it's very intentional. And this is the weight loss agenda. And it's really hard. It's really hard because I sort of ended the book there, not completely abruptly, but it didn't have a happy ending. It doesn't have a happy ending yet. There is no happy ending. There's no positive spin to put on this stuff. I tried in the epilogue to sort of kind of cheer people up. I don't know if I succeeded, but that is the long and short of it. The thread that's running through all of it, though, is what good healthcare does look like and should look like. Because the thing is, and as I point out in the book repeatedly, this isn't new information. I am not telling doctors this is a new way to practice medicine. I'm just saying this is how doctors are supposed to practice medicine. Like it's already in the handbook. It's not radical. It's not some new standard. It's just we've been talking about this stuff for like 100 years, you know, like autonomy and, you know, first do no harm and all of that stuff. Like it's already there, written in black and white. Sometimes it's quite explicit. Like you're not allowed to discriminate against your patients based on the fact that you think they brought on their medical condition. Like that's actually explicitly written into our UK guidelines for doctors. So yeah. I remind people that no is a complete sentence and you get to opt out and you get to say no. And doctors cannot demand anything else. And it's hard because they will try every technique they know. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you can say no. But I try to remind people that there is a way. There are some questions here which I'm gonna try and answer now. Is this book for people just starting on an anti-diet journey? Absolutely. In fact, like I really want people who are starting on an anti-diet journey to read this book. The sooner the better, right? Like I think it's written for anyone to understand. I've tried to write it in very plain English without the jargon. It's a story. Like it's best to read it through from chapter to chapter because it sort of follows a theme. But yes, you don't have to know anything about anti-diet. The idea is you've never heard of anti-diet before and you can pick up this book and you can read it. And by the end of it, you could be an expert. How can this book support someone who has been advocating for themselves for a long time? I guess that's like the other end of the spectrum, right? Although both of these things could be true at the same time. For some people, they've been in the anti-diet world for decades, right? And they're still struggling to access the healthcare that they deserve. And they know they deserve better. There is a lot of advice. There's language that people can use. Like I'm very there's quite a few times I'll say, if your doctor says this, you can say this. If your doctor's trying this, you can try this. I'd love to be able to present the perfect solution and just be like, hey, here's like a 2-page PDF of how to, you know, get the care that you deserve. I wish that it was that simple. It's not. That being said, there is a 2-page PDF that you can get. And there's a QR code in the book. If you scan it at the end of the book, you can get a 2-page PDF script for how to advocate for yourself in the doctor's surgery. But I appreciate that that's not going to fix everything. Will this book help me to talk to my fat phobic family? Well, I think that this is a great way to talk to your fat phobic family. You can just give them the book and just be like, shut the fuck up and read this book and don't talk to me about it again. Like a part of writing this book was a little bit like, hey, I really want to take the burden of you having to tell your because no one takes you seriously. No one believes you, right? And I get that that's one of the many privileges of being a doctor is people do listen to me because I have a medical degree and somehow that means that I know everything. I know that's not true. A lot of people see it that way. So you can just give them a book written by a doctor with over 200 clinical references in it and just be like, I'm not saying this shit. Like, here it is. Here's the book. You read it. And just leave it at that. I don't, that's one way to deal with it. Um, it sounds like this book is actually important in this environment where GLP-1s are the default. Yeah, you're going to learn throughout this book why GLP-1s are the default. And I think once you know like how they did it, like I tell the actual story of how they did it, how they got to be that successful, what it took. It took them about 15 years, but it was very clever. And yeah, I reveal the playbook, if you will. Um, is there a section in the book you think might be particularly persuasive when talking to a fat phobic doctor? If you had to pick a section, it's the one on weight stigma. Because, like I said, there's a big section in there about medical ethics. This is what your doctor should do, like has to do, is obligated to do. And so, if they're not doing it, you be like, "Hey, dude, you're supposed to do this and you're not doing it." I would argue that's probably rather than trying to convince them that weight loss is not the right solution for you. I think that's probably the most effective. And I also think there's such a power dynamic, isn't there? There's such a disproportionate amount of power held by the doctor in the consultation room. So in a way, I want people to I want to sort of pull back the curtain and be like, actually, this is what doctors are supposed to be doing. This is what you should expect from your doctors every single time. This is standard medical care. And so if you know that and you know your doctor's not doing it, I want you to have the courage to say, hey, like you're supposed to be doing this and you're not. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I hope so. What's the one piece of advice or information from the book or from your knowledge that you'd give to someone who is skeptical of all this? Ooh, this is a good question. And it's like you teed me up. You knew that I wanted someone to ask this. I didn't pay you, just to be clear. But there is a section on the website, on the No Way website. You go to noway.org and then you go to the evidence section. I can't remember exactly, but it's the evidence. I wrote that specifically for skeptics. And I think there are probably 10 clinical references 10 actual references, but I wrote this for skeptics. So if you've got someone who's just like, this is all bullshit, you can just send them to that webpage and just be like, okay, sure, go read this and then come back to me. Because I'd like to think, fairly persuasive. I'm trying to educate friends, but it's really, really hard, especially with GLP-1s everywhere. I get that. And I often will say to people, it's really a lot to ask of you to have to educate friends, family, medical professionals. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. You are already experiencing a lot of stigma, a lot of trauma, a lot of harm at the hands of all of these people who are supposed to care about you. The last thing you should have to do is become an expert. Like, here's the evidence, here's the paper, as you can see in the journal of, the British Medical Journal and page 230 of volume 200. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do any of that. So I hope that the book and the website will provide people with, will be able to give you the opportunity to just say, I'm tired. And there's a book out there, just go read it. Educate yourself rather than you having to educate other people. Get them to educate themselves. Um, yes, there's a comment here about drug prices and the rise in drug prices. Yeah. Um, do you intend to have it translated later? Yes. There are two people from France sitting in audience of this book launch, and French might be the first language that I translate it into, not because I prefer French to any other language, simply because French people have offered to help me. I would love to be able to translate this into multiple languages. I am a self-published author, which I'll be talking about in a moment. I have to do all of this stuff on my own. I don't have you know, a publisher that's going to do it for me. So, yeah, it might take a little while, but it is the plan. Um, I love this comment. The positive is the empowerment to push back and self-advocate in a more informed way. We shouldn't have to, and it's also a valid choice not to, but this is a very important tool to help us decide and know how to. Oh, I love that. I might copy that and put that in all my on my website. Instead of a mic drop, it's a book drop, and then you leave the room. Yes, like don't talk to me before you read it. Just very much like, do you remember like when people were like talk to the hand, like talk to the book. Just shove it up in front of them. It's very bright blue and orange, right? It's very hard to miss. Just shove the book in their face and be like, yes, over 200 clinical references. I should probably count however many, how many there are. I think it might be upwards of 250. Um, Advice on finding care when it's likely to be denied on the grounds of BMI. I spend a lot of time working with clients on a one-to-one basis. It's definitely mentioned in great detail in the book. You're someone who has severe arthritis and you're going to need both knees replaced. I I don't want to give too much away, but I am literally working on the next project because I can't finish a project without working on the next project. The next project is basically about this. How do I find a doctor who's willing to do the surgery? Watch the space. I promise you, I can help with that. I have got a lot of clients that I've worked to who have couldn't get the surgery, and I sometimes actually sat in the consultation room with them, and I'm not going to say bullied their doctor, but basically advocated for them until they got their surgery. Um, I live in the Netherlands. I think the way of the NHS may be different from Dutch healthcare. Yes. And a lot of you are saying, like, I live in America, I live in the Netherlands, I live in France. Like, you're all in different parts of the world, and our healthcare systems are going to be different. I have worked with clients in most parts of the world. I'm not going to say everywhere, but I've worked with clients in Europe, in Canada, and America, and in Australia. And yes, I agree. Healthcare systems are different. However, that being said, there are some fundamentals that apply wherever you are. There are certain ethics, certain laws that all doctors must abide by, wherever they are in the world. And that can be applied everywhere. A lot of the work that I did, a lot of the research that I did was based primarily in the UK, although I do mention the American Academy of Pediatrics, I mention the WHO, I mention the National Institutes of Health in the US. I think I even mentioned a Canadian medical institution as well. So, but a lot of the stuff I did was in the UK because I practice in the UK. But most of the stuff in this book applies to anyone, anywhere. There's no kind of yes. And then yes, someone here commenting actually, even in the UK, it's very much differs depending on where you live. So BMI limits, every trust has a different number. There's no UK-wide regulation on this, and the reason is because it's completely and utterly fucking illegal. It is a discrimination, and I would very much like a lawyer to come along and please try the case. It's illegal what they're doing. Illegal, there's no question about it. And so there's no argument to be made apart from discrimination here, especially when it comes to BMI limits on surgery. There's very strong arguments to be made against them. So I'm going to quickly, I wrote some more notes, so I'm going to quickly go through them, and then I kind of got to the Q&A a little bit early. Just a little bit about who this book is for. Maybe that will answer some of your questions. It is written primarily for any fat person who has ever walked out of a doctor's appointment feeling worse. Full stop. Ever like you go into the doctor feeling crap, because otherwise why'd you go and see a doctor? But you come out feeling worse. You know that feeling. You don't need me to tell you what that's like. I wrote this book for you. I wrote this book for every single person out there who was told to lose weight instead of getting a diagnosis. Nobody cares about what could be causing it. They have already decided the moment you sat down, it's because you're fat. And the only way to treat this is weight loss. I wrote this for you. I wrote this to everybody, like the person in the waiting room, in the audience who is being denied surgery for their knees. I wrote this for every single person who's being denied treatment until they're deemed thin enough, whatever thin enough looks like. And as one person pointed out, it just depends on where you live. Postcode lottery or zip code lottery, as they say. I wrote this book for every single person who has blamed themselves, who internalized the message that actually this is all my fault. If I was thinner, I wouldn't have had any of these problems. So when my doctor treats me like shit, I deserved it. I brought it on myself. I wrote this for you. I, you know, I wrote it for you. The book is yours. To any fat person out there, it gives you the evidence, it gives you the language, it gives you the permission to push back. I'm not saying it's easy to push back, but it gives you the permission to do so. Um, Here's a comment. In my opinion, the book is sharing some infuriating stuff. Yeah, I think I might have pissed you off a few times. Sure, but it is super empowering to first know what we feel as not okay is not okay. Yes, that kind of validation. And even if nothing changes immediately with doctors or family, I feel like I can have a much better informed consent or non-consent. I feel like I can say, no, no thanks. Let's not talk about my weight. No way. I love that. You catch on. Yeah. There's a lot in there about consent and opting out and how to opt out. Like you just don't have to listen to any of it. And there are some parts that I think people will find really surprising. Like diabetics, for example. There's a whole section in there about how like you just get to say no to all of that shit. Not just the weight loss, which is important, but also like the stupid advice they give you about not eating this and being careful here and all that shit. It's all made up bullshit. And so there's lots of information out there that gives you the opportunity to make your own informed choice, right? Because at the end of the day, this is not meant to be a substitute for medical care. I'm not trying to be your doctor. That's not appropriate. That's not my job. But if your doctors are not giving you the evidence, if they're withholding the evidence, if they are giving you the wrong information, if they are not giving you the opportunity to make your own informed choice because they're coercing you into doing something, which is illegal, if they are trying to persuade you, any of those things, like you need information, you need knowledge. The idea that knowledge is power, that's how can you claim back any of your power if you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So I think a lot of this is just kind of giving you the opportunity to say no or no way, because I'm punny like that. The who this book is for is powerful and emotional. I relate and imagine others will too. Thank you. um yes, I talk about somebody's talking about my pre-diabetes podcast. Like I said, a lot of stuff I'm talking about in the book is also in the podcast. I have talked about many of the issues. As I said, I've been writing this book for a long time. There's a big section in the book about pre-diabetes and how it is a made-up condition, literally made up. There's no such thing. It's absolute bullshit. And we've always known that it's bullshit because the moment the American Diabetes Association created it, experts around the world went, no, bullshit. They did it as a PR stunt, literally an actual PR stunt. And now 1 in 3 Americans are quote unquote pre-diabetic. And so, you're talking about your friend who has a marginally raised A1C and is being told to do this, that, and the other. And it's all bullshit. Like you're being lied to, literally lied to. And there is one article that was written in Science magazine in 2019, which makes it very clear that it's bullshit. One article written in 2019. We should be screaming about this from the rooftops. But the people who paid to create pre-diabetes just happen to be the very same people who are now manufacturing 2 fairly well-known drugs, Wegovy, Ozempic, and Mounjaro, the same drug companies. They paid for all of this. This is all they're doing. They are behind all of it. The American Diabetes Association in 2023 created these new guidelines that essentially say people should lose weight in order to prevent diabetes. They stopped short of saying, so use Ozempic, but just shy of saying it. And the American Diabetes Association that year received $10 million from Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, who make Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro. So we're living in a GLP-1 age for a very good reason. These are the second and third highest grossing drugs in the world in 2025 for a very good reason. And the book talks about this a lot. I was trying to explain to the nurse at one visit that I didn't want to discuss my weight. He said he would cover the scales so I didn't have to see. I said, no, I know I'm fat. I know how much I weigh. I just don't want to discuss it today. Nice. He kept saying he wouldn't tell me how much I weighed. They can't conceive of the idea that I wouldn't or shouldn't be ashamed. And I agree, you were allowing them to weigh you because up until a while ago, you were still eligible for pre-COVID because of your BMI. So you had a very good reason for for wanting to be weighed. And it is okay to say, yes, you can weigh me, but don't discuss my weight. Like that's just really simple. You can say, you can weigh me, but this is how I want you to record it in my notes. You can say, you can weigh me, but you can't use it to calculate my BMI. Pay attention to this one, people, because unless they use your height, and they'll do it automatically, but if you don't allow them to calculate your BMI, they may use your weight, like they can use your weight to, work out what dose of certain drugs you need. They can use your weight because maybe they're monitoring your weight for a very good reason. They could use your weight. I understand in your situation you needed your BMI calculated, but they can measure your weight without calculating your BMI. You can also say you can weigh me, but you can't place me on the obesity register, which is a register that if you're in the UK and you have a BMI over 30, you're on that register in your GP surgery. You can say, I don't wish to be on this register. I wish to be removed from it. Or I don't wish for you to use that against me. Yeah. What? Um, There's a cat, a very famous cat, who was making a kitten, not even a cat. Um, he's appearing. All right, so I think I've run out of. I've got to the end of questions. And I think that's good because we're running out of time. Um, let's finish. The book is out tomorrow. There is a link in the show notes. There'll be a link in the chat. Here's a few things you need to know. When I self-published this book, Amazon asked me to give to put it into to give it what's the word I'm looking for? Hang on, let me just go to the website and I'll think my brain has stopped. Amazon asked for me to give it like the word is gone, but I've put it down as a diet and weight loss book. Category, that's the word I was looking for. Oh my God, category. Asked me to give categories. I've put it down as a diet and weight loss book. I've also put it down as personal health. Those are the two categories, right? If I sell a lot of copies in the first couple of days, it is possible, and this is just wishful thinking, this is pie in the sky thinking, it is possible that I could be a best-selling diet book. And I will be able to tell everybody that I wrote a best-selling diet book. And I'd really like that. I'd really like to be able to say that. So I'm asking you to buy the book in the first couple of days so that I can be the author of a best-selling diet book. Imagine if everyone who goes to look at diet books clicks on, a book, and the first thing Amazon recommends is the number one ranked best-selling diet book of the week, my book. That would be cool. I'm kind of like, no pressure, but that would be cool. An Amazon review, if you've read the book already, the more reviews you put on Amazon, even if it's a one-liner, it doesn't matter. Amazon doesn't care, but the more reviews you put on Amazon, the higher it goes in the ranking. The higher it goes in the ranking, the more likely people are going to read it. I want to make it very clear right now. I did not write a book to sell copies. I did not write a book to be famous. In fact, if I could write a book anonymously, I would. And I definitely didn't do it to make money. For those who don't know, selling books is not a great way to make money. So I am not trying to persuade you to buy this book so that I can become rich and famous. I am trying to persuade you to buy this book to support me, yes, of course, which is great. Thank you to those of you who are. But because the more copies that are sold, the more people are talking about this book, the more strangers on the internet that have never heard of it all of a sudden come across it and go, oh, what's this? And get curious about it and start reading it, the more the message will spread. And that's what I want to happen. It's not about selling copies. It's about getting the message out there and forcing healthcare professionals to pay attention. I want you to imagine you're a doctor. You're sitting in your office and somebody brings in a book or says, have you heard of this book? Or mentions the book, references the book. The first time you hear it, you dismiss it. The second time you hear it, you dismiss it. The third time you start to get a little bit pissed off. What the fuck is this book? Who is this author? Why are they making my lives difficult? But if you've heard it 5 times, if you've heard it 10 times, if people keep talking about this book, you're going to find it very hard to ignore it. Especially if people use this book to start writing in complaints about your mistreatment of them. Life's going to get really tricky for you really quickly, and then you're going to have to pay attention, and you're going to have to address some of the issues that this book raises. So part of it is like, I want people to get the message. Most importantly, I want fat people to read about this. I want fat people to feel empowered to be able to advocate for themselves. But there's also part of me that wants to force the conversation a little bit. And when I say the conversation, I'm talking specifically the conversation about why we shouldn't be prescribing weight loss, why we shouldn't be weighing patients, we shouldn't be prescribing weight loss, we shouldn't be talking about weight in the consultation. And we absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, shouldn't be fucking stigmatizing our patients because of their weight, because this is just completely and utterly unacceptable. So, yes, please, I need your help to spread the message. As I said, am self-published. I don't have a team. I don't have an editor. I edited it myself. I don't have a PR team. There's nobody working in marketing. There's nobody helping me here. It's just me. And so the more you help me to spread this message, the more the message will spread. So tell people about this book, share about it, post about it, send it to your doctor. If you want to really piss someone off, buy a copy for your doctor. Thank you, folks, very much. I'm coming to the end of my podcast. You don't have to leave if you're here, but I'm going to end the podcast now. I'm going to end the recording. Thanks, folks. See you next week. And yeah, let's see what happens next.